Hello everyone, welcome to Zoho Sheet's webinar. This is Jay Shankari, and in this video we'll be looking at how you can use Zoho Flow and Zapier in order to create automated workflows between your spreadsheets and thousands of other applications. So let's get started. So this will be the agenda for the video. So first we'll be looking at a brief introduction about Zoho Flow and Zapier, and followed by that we'll be looking at a demonstration where I'll be showing you how you can create these automated workflows in Zoho Flow and Zapier. Zoho Flow and Zapier are nothing but those applications using which you can create connections between thousands of applications. So you can create automated workflows from one application to several other applications and create personalized workflows based on your use case. And as I said, Zoho Flow and Zapier provide thousands of applications between which you can create connections. And using these connections or workflows, you can send or you can fetch information or data from one application to the other. So this is just a brief introduction about what these applications are. Now we'll jump into the demonstration and I'll show you how you can use Zoho Flow and Zapier to create such automated workflows around your spreadsheets using various other applications as well. So let's get started. So this is the sample spreadsheet I'll be using for the demonstration. So you can see I have three different worksheets with three different sets of data. So first I have the event attendees list, and then I have the task list here in the second sheet, and in the third sheet I have the information about the leads or potentials that I have. So I'll be using these three worksheets for creating the connections using Zoho Flow and Zapier. So now first we'll go to Zoho Flow's user interface and we'll see how we can create a workflow using Zoho Flow. So this is Zoho Flow's user interface. So you can see the workflows that I've already created being shown here. So first you can see that I have a simple connection between Zoho Sheet and Zoho Mail. And then I have another connection between Zoho Sheet and two applications, that is Trello and Zoho Click. And you can also notice that one of these workflows is turned on, whereas the other one is turned off. So now we'll see how we can create a new workflow from scratch, and then we'll see how it works. So in order to create a new workflow, you can use this button here in the top right corner called Create Flow. You can give a name for the workflow that you're creating, and you can also give a description for the workflow that you're creating if you need one. So later on when you are checking out the workflow, you will have a better understanding about how this works or what you've created this workflow for. So now I'm just going to skip the description and click on Create. So once you click on Create, you can see that Zoho Flow next goes to the Builder. So here you can see three different aspects being shown, that is the app, schedule or webhook. So in Zoho Flow and Zapier, there are actually two basic terms that you'll have to know while you're working. So the first one is trigger and the second one is action. Trigger will be the initial point of any workflow that you are creating, and actions will be those responses that will be given as a result of the trigger. So now as the initial point of this workflow, we'll have to set a trigger point. So for that, I'm going to choose an app. So now we are going to create a workflow in such a way that when a new task gets added to the Zoho Sheet file that we saw previously, I want a new card to be created in my Trello account. So in this workflow, my trigger point will be Zoho Sheet. So search for the desired application here. So I'll select Zoho Sheet and click on Next. So once I select the application, you can see the list of triggers that I can choose from. So this list of triggers will actually change for each application that you choose. So based on the application that you've selected, the list of triggers will be different. So for Zoho Sheet, this is the list of triggers that you can choose from. So here you can see the first trigger is row created. That is when a new row is created in that particular worksheet, then I want the action to take place. Similarly, if you have Zoho Sheet files that are saved in OneDrive, you can choose this option. And the third option is row created or updated. So if a new row is created or if an existing row is edited or updated, I want the action to take place. So then we have the similar option for OneDrive files. Then we have the next option is spreadsheet created. So as the name implies, when a new workbook or a spreadsheet is created. And then finally we have worksheet created. So as the name signifies, when a new worksheet is created in the specified workbook, I want the action to take place. So for this particular workflow, I'm going to go with the row created or updated trigger, because I want the card to be created when a new task is updated or when an existing task is updated, and click on next. So now that we've actually selected the desired trigger, we'll have to give the specifications for that particular trigger, and even we can customize it further as well. So here you can see the option being shown for the customization. So first you can see the name of the connection. So whenever you are using an application for the first time to connect, you can give a name for that particular connection. So here when I connected Zoho Sheet for the first time while creating a workflow, I gave the name as Zoho Sheet, so that is being displayed here. And then you can edit the variable name if you wish to. And next it will be the spreadsheet. So this spreadsheet will be the actual trigger point for this particular workflow. So we'll select the desired workbook from here. So this is the spreadsheet from which I'll be adding the task list or tasks. So I'll choose this spreadsheet here. So once I choose the desired workbook, the respective worksheets from that particular workbook will be listed here. So from this list, I can choose the desired worksheet that will act as the trigger point for me. So I'll choose the task list worksheet as the trigger point here. So once I choose the desired worksheet, you can see another criteria being shown below. So I can further customize this particular trigger in such a way that the action will take place only if a particular criteria or condition is met. So I'll click on filter criteria here, and you can see the options using which I can set the criterion for this particular trigger. So now I'm going to set this trigger in such a way that only if that particular task has a priority set as high, then I want a card to be created in Trello. Otherwise, I do not want a card to be created in Trello. So for that, my condition will be based on the priority. So I'll choose priority here, and it has to equal high. So now that I've given the specifications that are required, and I've also given the criteria based on which this trigger must act, I can click on done. So once you click on done, so you can see that it takes you to the board where you can start building your workflow. So now we have the initial trigger point set. The next thing we'll have to do is add an action. So for this particular workflow that we are creating, our action will be in the application called Trello. So once I add a task list in my worksheet, I want the card to be created in Trello. In the side panel that you can see on the left side, you can search for the desired application using which you want to create the workflow. So for me, here it is Trello. So here, once you see Trello, you can simply click on the application name, and you can see the contextual list of actions that you can choose from for your workflow. So here for this particular workflow, I want a new card to be created in the list that I already have in Trello. So here from this list, I can pick create card element here. All I have to do is just drag and drop it into the builder. So once I drag it into the builder, you can see a small indication showing you where you can position this particular element in order to create the workflow. So I'll just place it here, and there we go. So once I choose the desired application for my action, you can see the customization page opening up. So you can customize what kind of action that you would like to be performed in the application. So here the connection name is Trello. We have the variable name and the board. So in Trello, you will have boards, and then you'll have list inside the boards, and the cards will be created within each list. So here I'll choose the desired board that I want. So that will be to do. So you can see the various other boards that I have in my Trello account here. So I'll choose to do here. And within to do, you can see that I have only one list, that is task list. And within this task list, my new cards will be created every time I create a new task in the worksheet. So now for the card name, I do not want the card name to have a single fixed value, because that will not have any meaning when I look at the list. Whereas I want the card name to be contextual to each task that is being added to that particular list. So for that, I can also choose the custom value from the list itself. So here on the right side, you can see the trigger being shown. So when you click on that, you can see all the values being listed from the worksheet. So from here, I can choose the contextual values based on which I want the card name to be fetched from. So for this card name, I want the name of the task to be taken for each record that is being added. So I'll choose the value task. So now based on the task name, the card name will be taken up. And similarly for due date, I'll give a contextual value from the list here. So I've given the due date. So this will also vary contextually based on the record that is added. And you can also fill the other details based on your preference and use case. So here you can also choose the position of the card, of the new card that is being added in the list. So I'll choose it as top. So all the new cards that are being added will be placed on the top of the list. So now that I've customized the action that has to take place within my Trello, I'll click on done. So now we already have a simple connection that is complete. So you can see that we have a trigger and an action point. So once a record is added in the particular worksheet that we have mentioned, a new card will be created in the list that we have specified in Trello. For a single trigger, you can create any number of actions. So now let's see how we can create another action in the same workflow. So for that, before going to the application, I'm going to create a logic element here. I'm going to add a logic element here. So on the left side in the panel, you can see an option called logic. So within logic, you can find the various elements that are provided by Zoho Flow in order to add a certain decision criteria or a delay or even a variable or send notifications or even create custom functions within your workflow. So using these elements, you can further customize your workflow that you have using Flow. So now I'm going to add a decision element within this particular workflow that I have. So my next action will be that if the status of that particular task is open, then I want the owner or the person to whom the task is being assigned to receive a message through Zoho Click. So for that, I'm going to add a decision criteria first. So now I'll just drop it here after the Trello action. So once I drop the decision element into the builder, you can see the customization page opening up. So again here I'm going to give the condition or the criterion based on which I want the next action to take place. My criterion here, as I mentioned before, will be that if the status of the task is open, then I want the message to be sent via click. You can see that this drop down list will not only give you the values from the worksheet or the spreadsheet, that is the trigger, but you can also see values being listed from the action application, that is Trello. So you can choose the value from which you want this criterion to be taken from. So I'm going to choose the status value, and if it equals open, then I want the next action to take place. So now I've set the criterion for this particular workflow. You can give more than one condition or criterion if your workflow demands for it. So now I'm just going with one particular condition alone and click on done. We have the trigger, we have the first action, then we have the decision element. Now we'll set the next action or the final action for this particular workflow. So that will be in Zoho Click, as I said. So I'll search for Zoho Click here. Under Zoho Click, you can see the contextual list of actions being listed. So from this list, I'm going to choose the desired action. So for this workflow, I want a message to be sent to the user who is the owner of that particular task. So my action here will be message user. So here, once I drag this particular message user action into the builder, you can see two positions being listed or shown for me where I can drop this particular element or action. So you can see that the position on the right of the decision box actually indicates that if the condition is met, that is if the given condition is returning true as the result, then the workflow will perform the action that is given on the right. And if the given condition returns false, then the action that is given below the decision box will be taken into consideration. So here for this workflow, I'm going to give an action only for the true condition. I'm not going to give any action for the false condition. So I'll drop it here on the right. So now coming to the customization again. So for click here, you can give the message that has to be sent to the particular user. So I'm just going to give a sample message here. In this message, I'm going to use a contextual value as well. So I'm going to give the task name here. I want the task name to be mentioned here just to add more detail or context to this particular message. that I'm sending. So I'll add the task value here. So this way you can use contextual values wherever you see fit. So I've given a sample text here. So now I'm going to choose the user to whom this message has to be sent. And for each task that is being added, we know that the owner or the person to whom the task is assigned will differ. So I cannot give a fixed or one particular user here. So I'll choose a custom value. And in this custom value, I'm going to mention the value from here, so that will be the email ID. So if the user has a Zoho Click account with this email ID, then the user will receive the message in that particular Click account. So now that I've given the details or the information that is required, I'll click on done. So now our workflow is almost complete. So if you want to add more context to this particular workflow that you've created, you can also edit the label of each element that you have. So all you have to do is just double click on this text that you see in each element, and you can simply start typing to edit it. So this way, if you want to add more context to the elements or the workflow that you have created, you can add or you can edit the labels of each element as well. So now our workflow is complete. So after you've created the workflow, you can use this particular option called test and debug if you want to test this particular workflow you have created, if it is working properly or not. And once you've created the workflow, one important step that you'll have to do is switch the workflow on. So here you can see an option on the top right corner saying your workflow is off. So using this toggle switch, once your workflow is complete, you can switch it on. So only if you turn on the particular workflow, it will work. Otherwise, the workflow that you've created will not work. So make sure that you turn on the workflow once you've completed the building process. So now that we've created the workflow, let's see how it actually works. So for that, we'll be adding a new task record in the particular worksheet, and we'll see if a new card is being created in the particular Trello list that we have given. And then we'll see if the owner of that particular task has received a message via Zoho Click. So here, as you can see, I've opened up three windows. There is three different applications. So the first one is Zoho Sheet. We have the spreadsheet that we saw, and then the second window is the Trello board that I was talking about while creating the flow. And third, we have Zoho Click's interface. So here I have kept the windows in the workflow order. So first, I'll add a record in this particular worksheet, and then we'll see how this particular workflow that we created adds a card in Trello and also sends a message to Carla via Zoho Click. So now I'm just going to add another task record in this particular worksheet. So as you can see, once I created the task record in this particular worksheet, you can see the name of the task record here is web page creation. The priority is high. We've given a due date. The owner of this particular task is Carla, and the email ID is car@silka.com. And the status is open. So here in the second window, you can see that we have a card created in Trello with the same name as that of the task, that is web page creation. You can also see the due date being shown, and simultaneously you can also see the message being sent via Zoho Click to Carla. So here you can see the task name also being added to the message here as we had given in the workflow. So this way you can also add multiple applications in a single workflow as well. So now we saw how we can create an automated workflow from scratch using Zoho Flow, and we also saw how you can add certain elements into your workflow in order to personalize or customize it further. So now I'll close this particular workflow. Now let's look at another example here. So here you can see that I already showed a simple connection that we saw before. That is, the trigger here is Zoho Sheet and the action here is Zoho Mail. So you can see a simple connection between Zoho Sheet and Zoho Mail. So we'll see how it works. So let's say I'm attending an event or a conference where I'm meeting potentials or leads for my organization or business. And once I enter those leads details into my worksheet, those potentials or leads will receive an email from my professional account via Zoho Mail. So this is what happens in this particular workflow that we are seeing right now. So I'll show you what customizations have been done in this particular workflow. So first we have the trigger point, that is Zoho Sheet, and we'll see what customization has been done. So you can see that the trigger here is row created or updated. You can see the connection, variable name, and you can see the spreadsheet has been selected, and the particular worksheet that has been selected is the leads worksheet in the same spreadsheet we saw previously. And there is no filter criteria. So in the action, you can see the customization here. So as I said, an email from my professional account will be sent out to the potential via Zoho mail. So here you can see the specifications required for it. So you can see the from address will be the address that you want the mail to be sent from. So for the to address, you can see that I've given a custom value. So this value will be taken up contextual to the email ID that is present in the record that you're adding in your worksheet. So for each potential, their respective email ID will be taken up. And you can see the subject line that I've given and the email content as well. So this is the email content that will be sent out to the potentials. So now let's see how this particular connection works. I'm going to add an example lead detail in that particular worksheet, and we'll see how the email is being sent from Zoho Mail. So here you can see that on the left I have Mix Zoho Sheet account opened up, and on the right I have Carla's email account opened up. So here I'm going to add the details about the lead here. So the lead for me here will be Carla. So once I add Carla's details here in this particular worksheet, you can see her receiving an email from Mick here on the right. So let's see how that happens. There we go. So here on the right, you can see that Carla has just received an email from Mick. So you can see the email here. You can see the subject line that we had given in the workflow. And you can also see the email content that was present in that particular workflow. So you can see how adding this particular record in the worksheet has sent this email to Carla automatically from Mick's account. So this way you can create and customize workflows based on your personal business use cases with any application that you want to create it with. Now that we have seen how we can work with Zoho Flow in order to create automated workflows, let's take a look at Zapier and how you can use Zapier in order to create such similar workflows. So this is Zapier's interface, and in Zapier, workflows are actually called as zaps. So if you want to create a zap, you can simply get started by using this button here that is called make a new zap. So as you can see, the first point here is the trigger. So this is similar to what we saw previously. So the first initial point will be the trigger followed by the action. So here now I'm going to create a workflow between Evenbrite and Zoho Sheet in such a way that every time a new attendee registers to my event on Evenbrite, that particular attendee's details must be listed for me in my Zoho Sheet workbook. So now let's see how we can do that. So first let me give a name for my zap here. So I'll change it to event attendee details, and now we'll start with making the zap. So our first point will be the trigger, and as I said, for this particular workflow my trigger will be from Evenbrite. So once I type in the application's name, you can see the application being listed below. So select that, and based on the application that you select, the various triggers for that particular application will be shown for you. So here you can see the various applications for Evenbrite being shown here. So from the list, I'm going to select this particular trigger, that is new attendee registered. So once we have chosen the trigger, you have to choose the other information or details that are necessary. So first you'll have to choose the account from which you want the details to be taken. Your Evenbrite account has to be linked here. And once you link your account here, you will have to then give the other details, that is for which event you want these details to be taken. All these details will be taken from your account once you sync it. So you can simply choose it from here. So the event for which I want this workflow to work is the Zoho Sheet webinar. So this is an event that I already have in my Evenbrite account. So I'll select this event and I'll click on continue. So now we'll test if the trigger is working fine. So here you can see that the trigger is working fine. So now we'll move on to the action. So I'll just click on continue. So here the app where the action has to happen for me is Zoho Sheet. So every time a new attendee registers for my event on Eventbrite, the attendee's details must be listed for me in my Zoho Sheet. I'll select Zoho Sheet. And once I select Zoho Sheet, the respective action events will be listed out for me. So here you can see the various actions that you can choose from. So you can create a new worksheet, create a new row, update an existing row. You can also find some other actions being listed here. That is, you can search and update an existing row. For example, you can search for attendees from the registration list and update in your worksheet using this particular search and update row action as well. And you can also choose to delete a row, or you can also search and delete specific rows, and then you can see the similar options for files in work drive as well. So this way you can choose the particular action event that you want for this particular use case. So here I'm going to choose create row because I want a new record or new row to be created every time a new attendee registers. Once you choose the action event that you want to be performed, the next will be the details for that particular action to take place. So first we'll specify the account, that is the Zoho Sheet account that I want my action to take place in. And further we'll have to give the information about the spreadsheet and the specific worksheet as well. So here my workbook will be Zoho Flow and Zapier demo. So this is the same spreadsheet that we saw previously. And worksheet will be the first worksheet, that is the event attendees worksheet. So once I select the specific worksheet, you can see the headers from that particular worksheet being listed out here for me. So this is the actual worksheet. So you can see the headers here, that is first name, last name and email ID. And you can see I already have one attendee who has registered here. In Zapier, you can see the headers being listed for me. That is the first name, last name and the email ID. So I'll have to just map the values to each of these headers here. So you can see the values being listed. So I'll just map the values to those headers. So once that is done, you can simply click on continue. So now our Zap is ready. So we'll just do a small test to see if everything's working fine. So you can see that Zapier has now sent an example test row to see if the Zap is actually working fine. So now let's go to the worksheet and see if we have got that particular test row. You can see that we have got the example test row that was sent by Zapier here. So from my account, you can see that Zapier had mapped the first name, last name and email ID for testing, and you can see the specific information being displayed here. So this way I can see that my Zap is ready and it is working fine too. So now let's switch it on and test. So just like we saw in Zoho Flow, you'll have to turn on the particular workflow or Zap for it to work. So here, once the Zap is complete, you can see an option here to turn on the particular workflow. So I'll turn on the Zap now. So now this particular workflow or Zap is live. So now I'm going to do a sample registration for that particular event we saw on Eventbrite, and we're going to see if that particular record is being updated in the Zoho Sheet spreadsheet. So here on the left you can see the Evenbrite registration page, and on the right you can see the spreadsheet that I had shown before. So now I'm going to make a registration in the registration page, and we'll see how the record gets added in this particular worksheet via the flow that we had created. So I'll just fill in the details for the registration now. So now you can see that after I registered for this particular event, on the left you can see the record getting added on the right. That is, you can see the record getting added on the worksheet here. So you can see the name Carla Reynolds and the email ID that we had just used for the registration here. So this way you can create automated workflow around your Zoho Sheet spreadsheets using Zoho Flow and Zapier with thousands of other applications. I had only shown a few examples in this video, but you can make use of the thousands of applications and customization options that are available in Zoho Flow and Zapier in order to create customized and personalized workflows for your business use cases. Hope you all found this video helpful. Do try creating automated workflows using your Zoho Sheet spreadsheets and let us know how useful they were. Hope you all found this video useful. If you have any questions, or if you need any help with creating these automated workflows, or if you have any questions about Zoho Sheet in general, you can write to us at support@zohosheet.com and we'll be here happy to help you out. If you have any feedback about this video, you can drop them as comments below. Hope you all found this video helpful. You can also check out our previous webinar videos using the link in the description. See you all in the next session. Thank you.